From the Wall Street Journal, being married to your best friend can lead to a happier life and greater satisfaction. It can also be a burden. Jordan, this article is titled, Should Your Spouse Be Your Best Friend?
What is their argument?
About half of married people and couples living together say their partner is their best friend, with men most likely to say that more than women. 48% of married women listed their spouse as their boyfriend, their BF. I interpreted that to say boyfriend
forever.
as their best friend, compared to 64% of men in a 2017 study. So, Jordan, are you surprised to hear that women are less likely than men to list their spouse as their best friend? Is that surprising to you, or
It is, and then it's like not at the same time because of the different people process things. Like that's what's confusing, because you would think that the girl would say that he is my best friend, but I think that a guy might say that because he knows he needs a best friend and he doesn't have one. And so he's like, well, my wife is my best friend. And you say that because you don't have a best friend in real life, because guys are generally more lonely.
right?
So whereas a girl is meeting people in the bathroom and everybody's her best friend, like for like 5 minutes. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, my husband. I don't know.
If you're more relationship focused, then yeah, it makes sense that, oh yeah, well I got my husband, but I got my girlfriends over here. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
whereas
there's
the
more of a
guy is just like is more going to be more of a loner, and so
Who's my one friend?
a lot of the appeal of the spouse is this to say, oh, you're like my only friend.
You're the only one I talk to.
I love you.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is working out.
We're still together.
So they often hear from women who tend to have richer social networks. I wish my husband had more friends.
Yeah.
Couples who are best friends say they work on it. They listen, share feelings, thoughts, explore new things together. But relying on one person to be your everything, a partner, cheerleader, lover, counselor, can be too much, even for spousal superheroes. So, Jordan, should... The argument they're making is it too much to ask that one person be everything?
I'm just trying to think of like in the old days when people had farms and people were dying left and right, and they was like, are we gonna make it this winter? That person, in a way, their spouse is their everything. They have to be. And the guy, yes, he would go to work, but he would be out in the field. And then in the wintertime, like there's not that much to do except for like you've prepared, you're preparing, you guys are doing things together at that point inside and making sure that your animals aren't dying, but like you're not in the field like doing all this crazy stuff. I want to say that it's easier now for people to be everything to them because people, I feel like, are so much more isolated now. But back then, people were isolated, but they were more connected. And so maybe it was healthier back then for people to be their everything. Now it's almost like it feels like people need to have more friends because people, even the small connection that they have with their families now that are still feel disconnected, like they need some kind of outside connection to like the community and stuff. At least back in the day, people had a connection to their community as well as their family, but their family was still their everything, but their community really meant a lot and really dictated what they did and stuff. Now it's like the community doesn't matter.
Now, the community has been replaced with like your social network.
Yeah. And your Facebook friends.
Which is a lot of just seeing how other people are portraying themselves.
Yeah.
Versus, the people at the farm 3 miles down the road.
You see them at church, though. You see all these people in instances and times that really connect you guys together.
Well, and most likely you've been through some sort of a bad winter where people probably had to help each other, and you know what I mean? So it's like, it's not just like your neighbor down the road. It's somebody who probably like you helped them or they helped you during a really tough time.
Yeah, now it feels like I wouldn't think that back in the day people would say I don't have any friends. Back in the day, people would probably say, yeah, I've got a lot of friends that they would do anything for.
Yeah.
But they don't see them as often.
Yeah.
Now it's like we see people all the time, but it's just on Instagram. And we have no connection to them in reality. Like we wouldn't necessarily do anything for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think part of the issue is that we've been so comfortable for so long that now we're like it's not about like survival as much as it is about comfort. And so the question is, how can I be the most comfortable or safe or whatnot? And so
It's almost like now, like that, my wife is my best friend is almost a way of shielding yourself. I don't need anybody else because I've got my wife as my best friend, and she's my lover, and she's this. And, so it's kind of, but in the old days, I feel like people, maybe they wouldn't say my wife is my best friend, but their wife probably actually was their best friend. And now they say that, but is it really true?
Yeah.
That's kind of the question.
Again, like if you've gone through some sort of survival situation with somebody, like that bonds you in a way that, you know, that we can't understand as people who live very comfortable lives, and you know, most of us have not gone through some sort of life or death situation with another person. So
so I feel like people, it's like they both need their wives and their husbands as their best friend, but they need a community as well that they can have as friends too. Like, I think that's kind of the nitty gritty of it all.
Yeah. And so on one hand, it's like, it's a good question, I guess, but it also isn't. Obviously, you should be married to the person you like the most.
Yeah, it's like you. It shouldn't be like you can't just isolate yourself completely and just, you know, you shouldn't do that.
Like if something happens to that person, your entire like for the rest of your life, you know what I mean.
You have nothing else.
Right. So I thought this was interesting. A little bit later in the article, millennial couples often feel pressure to have their partner as their best friend. Says Liz Higgins, founder of the Millennial Life Counseling, herself a millennial married to her best friend. Some in their late 20s and early 30s saw their own parents divorce or remain in unhappy marriages. They want to avoid that and think having a best friend partner will help. If that's the goal, she says, they need to focus on what it means to be a best friend and work on that with their partner. I hadn't really thought about that. Obviously, this is not something we've had to think about, but a lot of these kids that are our age had parents that split up.
Right.
And so that is coloring how they look for someone. I guess I don't think like, I think about should my spouse be my best friend as something that you would think about after you're married. Are they asking, should you withhold from your spouse because you don't want them to be your best friend? You need to have other people? Because I disagree with that. Completely.
It seems like a weird question because it seems like a question that you would only ask in a time where everything is so messed up and weird that you would ask this weird question.
Yeah.
So it's just, the question is proof that times are not so great for relationships is what it is. It's like you're psychoanalyzing something that doesn't really, that's like if you solved another problem, then that would be solved.
If you have to ask the question, then you're already all
It's a lost cause.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me. That's why the question in and of itself is just, I don't know.
And I feel for these kids who worry. Like I never had to think about that. You know, I never had to think, oh, what if we get divorced like my parents did?
Right.
You know, but that's like a legitimate question a lot of people have to ask. And so I get that you would want to say, well, let me make sure I'm with my best friend because then we have that security. Yeah. Outside of just this, you know, they view it as separate. It's just very interesting. What do you guys think about this?